McLaren had a dismal start to the 2023 season, being well off the leader's pace since pre-season testing. But after introducing its first upgrade package at Austria, the upturn in form gives hope to fans of the papaya team. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri were the highlights during the British Grand Prix, as the MCL60 was the closest Red Bull challenger around the home of Formula 1. That's a dramatic turnaround in form for a team that was at the back as recently as the Spanish Grand Prix in June and looked in danger of falling permanently behind its midfield rivals. Around Silverstone, Lewis Hamilton referred to the McLaren as a rocket ship because it was so amazing. So, is there evidence of a true McLaren resurgence here, or was this just a one-off performance? What modifications has it made to its car, and what else needs to be done if it wants to once again compete at the front in the years to come? The team admitted at the start of the 2023 season that its car had major problems, but a floor upgrade at Azerbaijan represented a significant change in direction for the McLaren team, and that upgraded floor better suited the 2023 regulations, along with the raised floor edges by 15mm. That floor upgrade gave McLaren a performance gain of about 2 to 3 tenths, but that was not enough for the team to stamp its authority over the midfield teams. The big performance step for the British team was promised with the introduction of what team principal Andrea Stella described as what people would call a potential B-spec upgrade. The Italian also mentioned that the upgrade was a bigger conceptual change from where the car started during pre-season testing. It will be much more apparent, it's what somebody may call kind of a B-spec car. I would say pretty much every single aerodynamic part will change. That's why the upgrades will be spread over the course of a few races. It will be decently noticeable. I'm banking on this package. But across the pretty much 3 races in which we will introduce it, these should be a few tenths of a second. It will be noticeable from a lap time point of view. Big chunk of that promised performance upgrade package was introduced at the Austrian Grand Prix weekend. Only Lando Norris had the upgrade there, which gave the team the perfect opportunity to compare its old and upgraded car's performance. McLaren also pulled out all the parts it had in stocks to prepare upgrades, and made it clear to bring upgrades as soon as they are ready to at least one of its cars. Piastri got his upgrades at Silverstone, and his car was completely equal to Norris's car by the eve of the weekend. After testing the upgrades around Austria, and seeing a big lift in performance with a P4 finish for Norris around the Red Bull Ring, McLaren was confident of a strong qualifying and race performance around Silverstone. But the team surely did not expect themselves to being the closest challengers to Red Bull. Lando Norris qualified second, just a quarter of a second slower than Verstappen's Red Bull. His teammate Oscar Piastri qualified third, just another tenth behind Norris. The gap between the McLaren teammates correlated with the gap largely due to the new front wing specification that only Lando Norris had. This was comfortably McLaren's best performance of the season, as they easily outpaced big names like Ferrari and Mercedes. Norris had Verstappen do a barnstorming lap for pole around Silverstone, after Norris had put his McLaren on pole for a few moments at the latter stages of qualifying. McLaren team boss Andrea Stella admitted that the cooler conditions around Austria and Silverstone in particular aided in McLaren's good performance. But he also admitted that the upgrades were a big step of the car's upturn in performance. There's definitely a pattern, said Stella. High-speed corners, cold conditions, soft tires and, by the way, the same compound, C3. So, we like these conditions, our car likes it. The MCL60 around Silverstone was mighty fast around the high-speed corners, and has made minor improvements around the slow-speed sections. That meant that the McLaren chassis suited the Silverstone circuit very well. The big doubt was around McLaren's tire management, which affected its race pace around a Silverstone-esque Barcelona race circuit. But given how good of a race Norris had around the Red Bull Ring, and adding to the fact that the British Grand Prix had very much similar track conditions to Austria, Norris expected to enjoy a good race after an impressive qualifying session. Norris, after qualifying, expected to finish in the top 5 during the Grand Prix, but he was able to do more than that, as he led the first 4 laps of the British Grand Prix. Inevitably so, Norris was eventually passed by Max Verstappen, the eventual Grand Prix winner. Norris then ran second, ahead of his teammate Oscar Piastri. That was the order until Kevin Magnussen brought out a late safety car, which allowed Verstappen, Norris and Hamilton to pit under safety car conditions. Oscar had to drop to 4th due to the fact that he had pitted before the safety car was brought out. Norris pitted for fresh hards, while Hamilton pitted for a used set of soft tires. Despite the delta difference within tire compounds after the restart, Lando Norris was able to hold off a charging Mercedes behind him to achieve McLaren's first podium of the season. Piastri finished 4th, ahead of the Mercedes of George Russell. Collectively, McLaren had a points haul of 30 points at its home race, the highest for the team this season, which helped them leapfrog their midfield rivals on the constructors' standings. So to gain around a second of lap time, what exactly did McLaren change over the past couple of races? Well, if you take a look at its upgraded car, the team has taken inspiration from Aston Martin and Alpine, but mostly from the dominant Red Bull car. The radiator inlet at the front of the side pods is much smaller and wider, very similar to the letterbox opening of the Red Bull design. This design choice increases the side pod undercut volume, which allows more airflow to go through the undercut area at high speeds. That leads to more high-energy airflow towards the rear suspension and diffuser area, improving the overall diffuser performance. Towards the middle and rear sections of the side pods, McLaren has been able to create an increased gutter on the top surface of the side pods. This is similar to what Aston Martin and Alpine have on their cars, which allows airflow with high and clean energy to be pulled towards the beam wing in the diffuser section. This means that during high speeds, when the car's underfloor and diffuser are working hard, the consistency of the flow out of the rear of the car through the Coke bottle area and the diffuser has been massively improved. This reduces the chances of airflow separation happening around the underfloor, which could trigger porpoising. McLaren also has made changes to the halo's trailing edge, purely down to aid the car's aerodynamic performance. McLaren has made changes to details around the floor edge. McLaren previously had a small inlet to allow the upper floor surface flow to connect up to the tire squirt. But with the revised airflow structure, McLaren has now gone for a more mechanical seal. So this means you are relying on the proximity of the floor to the ground to seal the underfloor, rather than doing so aerodynamically like the Red Bull floor does. This, if handled incorrectly, could lead to massive porpoising issues. But if the team could avoid that, this can be very effective. And on the McLaren, it seems to be working wonders for now. There is a small hole on the lower edge of the diffuser sidewall. My guess is this allows for better sealing around the car's rear. McLaren has also gone for a gentler radius on the top corners of the diffuser rather than the aggressive radius that Red Bull seems to have implemented. This is a change McLaren has made in order to accompany the changes made to the car's underfloor design. McLaren has also reduced the size and lowered the cooling outlet at the rear of the engine cover. To work in tandem with this size change, McLaren have opened up a slot on the trailing edge of the spine of the engine cover, similar to what the MR23 has. This huge package was followed by the introduction of a new front wing and nose at Silverstone. The team described the front wing upgrade as a completely revised design, which they believe will aid in better airflow conditions, with a downforce gain as well. There are also minor tweaks to the rear brake ducts and the toe link shroud in the rear suspension. All these upgrades translated into performance, making the McLaren car the second fastest around Silverstone and the third fastest around Austria. But how sure can we be about McLaren's pace, as the data we have are from two tracks that fully support the MCL60's characteristics? Well, the last 2 weekends have demonstrated that McLaren is not only capable of being in a battle with the Aston Martins, Ferraris and Mercedes cars, but on a given good day, the British team could be very much ahead of those three teams. But there is still reason to believe that on its weaker tracks, like tracks which have lots of slow speed corners, the McLaren might actually drop back to fight with the team's longtime rivals Alpine. The upgraded MCL60 is impressive on high-speed corners, but not so good on the low-speed stuff. That was highlighted by the battle between Norris and Hamilton around the latter stages of the British Grand Prix, as Hamilton was able to close the gap to Lando on the first sector, while he lost out on the second and third sectors. This puts the McLaren car on the opposite spectrum to the Aston Martin, as the Aston excels on low-speed corners, and not so much on high-speed stuff. McLaren still have a long way to go, and that's what Lando Norris mentioned when talking about the progress the team has made with its latest upgrades. It's like 70% not fixed, 30% fixed, just by making the car quicker, adding load and having a better performance. I think 70% at the minute is more that if we just had more load, more of it will be covered. But it's not the whole solution. I think days like today prove that we're not miles away on certain things. It's just some characteristics and handling that I would still say we've had as an inherent issue over the last 5 years that we definitely still struggle with. It's clear that McLaren won't be able to reproduce a Silverstone-esque performance at every race weekend, but there is reason for optimism. This upgrades McLaren brought had delivered the performance it hoped for, and the team will continue to chip on from here onwards. Team boss Andrea Stella quoted aerodynamic technical director of McLaren Peter Prodromou to be a key player in the advancements McLaren has made within the last couple of races. And now after Silverstone, the British team looks to be right on track in its long battle to return to the front of the pack. And there's more upgrades the team has in the pipeline. With that in mind, what do you guys think? What do you expect from McLaren for the rest of the season? Can they carry the momentum they gathered from Silverstone to the next race at Hungary? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section down below. We'd love to discuss it with you. And on your way down, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get notified of our future uploads to keep yourselves up to date about the 2023 Formula 1 season.